Thomas Tuchel's management style resembles someone playing Football Manager and constantly experimenting. He's notoriously known for being fluid with formations according to the opposition his team faces. Tuchel was in charge of the Bayern Munich side that failed to clinch the Bundesliga for the first time in more than a decade. Whilst this coincided with Xabi Alonso's history-making Bayer Leverkusen side going unbeaten the whole season and winning their first Bundesliga title, it doesn't excuse Tuchel from being questioned about his performances. That's not all. A reprieve in the form of a Champions League run was still on the cards. Bayern Munich were barely 15 minutes away from booking a Champions League final spot against bitter rivals Borussia Dortmund. In the 84th minute, Tuchel decided to take off his talismanic striker Harry Kane to bring Choupo-Moting on, while leading by just one goal against an "it's not over until it's over" Real Madrid side. Firstly, who in their right mind would take off their best player and penalty taker while hanging on to a one-goal lead against the proven kings of the tournament? Tuchel was clearly going for a shutout once the clock showed 5 minutes of official time left. But isn't that naive, especially in a Champions League semi-final? But let's pause for a second and take a look at the other side of the coin. The match plan was to strangulate the Real Madrid creators to the wider areas of the pitch or to make them resort to long balls. On another day, Neuer doesn't uncharacteristically fumble the ball and Müller makes a decent enough pass on the counter to kill the game off. But football doesn't give you another day. You get punished for your mistakes right away. So we reach a crossroads with Thomas Tuchel. Is he a tactical genius, or does he get lucky time and time again? Thomas Tuchel's first coach was his father back in the 80s at a local club called TSV Krumbach. Heiner Schürmann, former FC Augsburg youth coach, remembers how demanding he was on the pitch even as a teenager. He joined Stuttgarter Kickers on a professional contract and was expected to reach great heights as a player. He had long legs and an abundance of technical traits, which was a great combination for a defensive profile back in the day. After a couple of years, he moved to a regional club, SSV 1846. He was coached by Ralf Rangnick among a few others during this stint, but his early 20s couldn't keep up with the physical demands of the game as a cartilage injury forced him to retire by the age of just 25. He turned to pursue business administration until a youth level coaching opportunity at Stuttgart knocked on his door. He spent almost a decade coaching at the youth level. An assessment of his managerial personality showed how open-minded he was to trying out new ways, but he was never the quiet kind who would bend to the board's will. It was either his way or the highway. In the summer of 2008, as Jurgen Klopp moved to Dortmund from FSV Mainz, Thomas Tuchel joined the U19 Mainz's side as their manager. In his first season in charge, they won the U19 Bundesliga title. He was promoted to the first team manager the very next year in July 2009 after Mainz was promoted to the Bundesliga. Tuchel managed to keep them in the Bundesliga in his first season in charge and followed up with a Europa League qualification the very next season. After managing the club for half a decade, he made them comfortably stay afloat in the top flight where they still remain today. Thomas Tuchel succeeded Jurgen Klopp at Dortmund in the summer of 2015. While he couldn't repeat his predecessor's success in the league by dethroning Bayern Munich as German champions, he did win the German Cup in the 2016-17 season. The stint at Dortmund announced his managerial prowess to the world, as well as his temperament. After just one season in charge, tiffs with the club hierarchy had started to surface. Tuchel was unhappy with the sales of Gundogan, Hummels and Mkhitaryan in the summer of 2016. The tension between Tuchel and the club's hierarchy continued to sour over the next season as he disagreed over many issues with Michael Zorc, the sporting director. After more disagreements with the head scout Sven Mislintat, the club couldn't see a sustainable relationship between the hierarchy and manager and decided to part ways in the summer of 2017. The Dortmund stint announced his managerial pedigree to the world, and PSG came knocking in 2018 after he had a year-long break. Before his arrival, the biggest challenge hadn't been a lack of quality, but rather the need to manage the big personalities in the locker room. This is where Tuchel excels because his man management is on par with the greatest coaches in the world. But that doesn't mean he never has tiffs with the players. Again, it's a two-sided coin, where the other side is perfectionism getting in the way of empathy. This means that he doesn't need players to be on board with his vision, he simply needs them to follow his instructions. If he realizes that a player is not in sync with the plan, his outbursts could be deemed hurtful. As a former Mainz player, Heinz Müller once called him a dictator. In his 2 years in charge of PSG, he won the League and the French Super Cup twice. He also won the French League Cup and the French Cup once each. The second season in charge also saw PSG reach the Champions League final for the first time in their history, but Tuchel's old nemesis Bayern Munich took the title away. The start of the third season was deemed poor by the club hierarchy, and soon cracks between upper management and Tuchel started to appear again. A repetitive pattern in his career, he had a falling out with sporting director Leonardo Araujo and was promptly sacked in December 2020. But Tuchel would soon have the last laugh. The very next month, Chelsea decided to play a punt on him, and boy did it work out well. Tuchel joined Chelsea in January 2021 to find them 9th in the league and through to the Champions League round of 16. He deployed a 3-4-3 or 5-2-3, however you look at it, and soon Chilwell and Reece James were exploding from those wing-back positions. The midfield duo of either Jorginho, Kovacic or N'Golo Kante were paramount to his setup, as both technically superior midfielders would rotate the ball with composure and bait opposition players into triggering a press before turning controlled possession into a quick attack. Most of the chances were created from out wide, as the two wingbacks created overloads from the sides. At the same time, the front three would either engage their backline and make darting runs, or one of the three would fall deeper to create an overload in the central areas. These tactics were explained very well by Pep Guardiola in an interview with Rio Ferdinand just days before the Champions League final between Chelsea and Manchester City. An admirer of Guardiola from his Mainz days, Tuchel came up with one of the best tactical solutions to Pep's formidable City side and beat him 1-0 to win the Champions League after just 5 months in charge. This campaign resulted in him being named the world's best club coach. This was followed by a Club World Cup and UEFA Super Cup victory in the 2021-22 season with Chelsea. The arrival of Todd Boehly as the new Chelsea owner resulted in fundamental differences with Tuchel, and he was sacked after a poor start to the 2022-23 season. He was then appointed as the Bayern Munich manager in March 2023 and won the Bundesliga on the last match day. After barely being in charge for a full season, Bayern Munich announced in February that the club and Thomas Tuchel had mutually decided to end their working relationship at the end of the season. What sets him apart from hardwired orthodox coaches is his understanding of human nature and how he utilizes man management to get the most out of his players. He gives individual brilliance and creativity a lot of weight and even creates unorthodox training environments to dig these out of his players. Somewhere deep in Tuchel's brain is simply the child who loved football, and he tries his best to emulate that in his players. He wants his players to have a certain amount of freedom on the pitch and even uses situation-based training techniques. This means that he will cut out situations that could occur in the game and train these in smaller segments to get better in those areas. The training sessions are one of his most unique managerial aspects. Since his Mainz days, he has come up with innovative training practices according to the requirements of the squad roles or an upcoming game. To answer the question asked at the beginning, Thomas Tuchel is definitely a managerial genius. The one lacking aspect in his career seems to be the lack of complete autonomy provided by the club's hierarchy. It seems like he just needs the complete trust of the board and a bit of time, and he will inevitably shine. Unfortunately, the fast-moving football of recent times has been unable to give him that freedom. Reports that Tuchel possibly staying back at Bayern Munich for the upcoming season had been swirling around, but he has reportedly refused to stay on. A free agent next season, Thomas Tuchel must be itching to join a Champions League side soon. Fan opinion on Tuchel has always been divided. What do you think about Thomas Tuchel and his management style? Is he destined for more success in the future? Let us know in the comments below.